Perfect timing. Boom.
Oh my. Sound actually.
Very good. Very good. Very good. They made Bunny very
Requesting
good.
transport support.
Yo guys, what is up? Max on our first Descendant video, and today we're going over our updated Bunny build. Now, I never thought I would see the day that Bunny was receiving buffs, but it has happened. Bunny is even stronger than she was before. The buffs that they did specifically buff Electrical Condense, which buff Bunny's single target damage, and allow her to, while Bunny was already really good at like running through dungeons and killing all of the ads leading up to like dungeon bosses, she now can one-shot the dungeon bosses at the end, making her incredibly potent for mobbing. It doesn't really do all that much. Like, it's definitely better for bossing, but I still, like, we have so many good bossing options. You don't really need to use Bunny anymore. But today we're going to be going over our, like, readjusted Electrical Condense Bunny build after her buffs and also after they've added Arche Tuning to the game. Hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Let's get right into it. So with Bunny, two big things changed. The first is that they buffed Thrill Bomb. So this now hits for a ton of damage, 683 base plus per 10% of electricity retained, you get skill powered times 15%. So you can get up to like 150% increased damage with this if you've got electricity. And then they also, the bigger buff, in my opinion, is Electrical Condense. Now, Electrical Condense changes her fourth ability from being a like Kamehameha beam that you shoot out to your hands to an explosion that you charge up. Now, this charges up over 5 seconds, so if you wait till it expires naturally, it will deal more damage. And it also, like the one and some of her other abilities, scales off of the amount of electricity retained. So this used to deal like 2,000 something base modifier. Now it does 4,715 base modifier, plus another 150% per 10% electricity retained. So you're going to want to be retaining your electricity. It's going to be a big part of how we're going to build this. And with a base cooldown of 38, if we build some cooldown, we can basically have this up all the time. Now, one of the really cool things about Electrical Condense that's not super obvious is it gives you a 20% sprint speed increase. So while this is active, we're actually able to hit sprint speed cap without using her 2 ability. And this is because of the new cores with sprint speed, some of the new inversion reinforcements. But basically, right now, just standing still, if we go to our Descendant, you can see that my sprint speed's at 1,096. Sorry, change that. 1,096 sprint speed. If we just at base, without anything, activate Electrical Condense while this is active, we go up to 1,256. So we're 50 sprint speed away from max. And now if we kill an enemy with the like Inversion Tuning and also pop our like 4 for Electrical Condense, we hit a max sprint speed of 1,300 without being in the second ability. So one thing that's really cool about this Bunny setup with Electrical Condense active and her ability to kill enemies, like if you're killing enemies at all, you don't actually need to ever click your 2, which is really cool. Her 2 like zooms your FOV out, so it looks faster and it feels faster, but you won't actually be gaining any movement speed in her 2 versus not in her 2. So we don't have to use as much like mana stuff and MP sustain, where normally it was like, oh, like we want to be sprinting all the time. Now it's like you don't actually need to be sprinting at all because you're going to be moving the exact same speed. Now, you still do want to be using the 2 when you can. It's just not as important. The main thing with the 2 is you do still build up more electricity while you're in it. So it's faster for electricity buildup, but it's not going to be increasing your movement speed, basically. So you can use it when you need electricity and then not use it when you don't need electricity, basically. But with Electrical Condense, in order to get it to explode for a ton of damage and constantly around us, we've got some build decisions to make. Now, the first thing to mention is that her third ability is Singular and her fourth ability is Fusion. And I had a lot of people coming into my chat when we were working on this build like, hey, you should be using Fusion things instead of Singular, like build for Electrical Condense. Once again, anything that is on your second part of your ability, so abilities of 2 tags, it's like a general tag like fire or electric, and then your second tag, which is dimension, singular, fusion, whatever that is. Anything that is going to be affecting those things, such as a like focus on singular, is going to give a skill power modifier. Modifier is very different than skill power. Modifier is additive with its base value. So, for example, if we were to put on, like, let's say we put on focus on fusion or focus on singular or skill simplicity, let's say that gives us about 80% modifier. It's 68 for this, but sure, we'll do 68. This has a base currently of 4,715. So 4,715 plus 68 modifier, because that's all that does for it. It's not 68% more. It's just 68% added on top of already 4,715. So we do this plus 68. Oh, that already did that. So 4,783 divided by what our new value is, or what our starting value was, which is 4,715. And we get about a 1% damage increase. So if we're building for fusion via our mods, we're only going to net out a 1% damage increase. But if we're building for singular, for example, with our third ability, only has a base modifier of 148. So we're going from 148 to 68 plus that. We're getting, like almost half of our modifier as extra. And so for her build, you really want to build singular, even though fusion is going to be the focus. The fusion is going to massively benefit from anything that is giving skill power, which electric amplification and focus electric are going to do. And then we can still build the modifier for her 3, where she actually needs it, where she doesn't need any modifier at all for the 4th ability. And so that's what we're going to be going for. So we're going to be going for focus electric amplification, and then focus on singular and singular amplification. Note that we are not going crit on Bunny, and you definitely could. Electrical Condense already hits for crazy numbers. We're hitting like 10 to 12 million with Electrical Condense. If that was critting, it would hit way more. But with crit, even on a full crit setup, you're getting to about 50% crit. This ability is not something that hits very often. So while your big hits would look really great, your small hits would look way worse, and you're losing so much quality of life to go crit. Basically, the only thing that would change to go for a crit build, we'd have to take off electrical amplification and singular amplification, obviously, and then we only get 2 crit mods, and we really need 4 to make the most out of it. So you've got to sacrifice cooldown, you got to sacrifice conservation, you got to sacrifice too much, in my opinion, to make it worthwhile. That's why we're not going to be building crit for her. So for the rest of the mods, with her new Arche Tuning, we can just go for amplification control. We don't need maximize range, because we can still cap out her range with just amplification control, and that way we don't lose any unnecessary power. So amplification control is going to be our range mod paired with skill expansion for more range, double cooldown with MP conversion and nimble fingers for as much cooldown spam on electrical condense as we can have. And then the last thing to mention is we're using maximize conservation. Now, this was an option between MP collector, potent collector, and conservation. And after trying all of them, I think conservation is the best. I was worried I was going to have electricity issues without potent collector. We don't really have mana issues, especially because we don't need to be in our 2 all the time, so MP collector is not needed. And then potent collector really only affects the 4th ability, but one thing that conservation does is it lowers the skill cost for all of our things, so we're costing less MP, we're costing less electricity, and when electricity is costing less, it's easier to retain, and that allows us to deal more damage with our condense. While this is a slight modifier loss, I think it's the best mod possible, rather than running potent and rather running than MP, because the big thing that you really need electricity for is bossing, is like the dungeon bosses or the bosses at the end of Sigma sector, and that's where potent collector and MP collector don't do anything. You're going to want to maintain that electricity and have those lowest costs for those bosses, and that's where I think conservation shines. So here is the build. You can screenshot it if you'd like. I'm not going to put my mouse over anything. That is the full setup. Now for our weapon, you have a bunch of options. The most important thing is that you get sprint speed cores on your weapon. You could use a bunch of different weapons. I am very short on cores, and so I'm using my Secret Garden, which is a weapon I use on a lot of Descendants. You could use something like the Peacemaker as well, which has a higher sprint speed than the Secret Garden. The big thing that you want is at least 2 sprint speed cores. If you go for 3 sprint speed cores, you're going to be at max speed more often, but the grappling hook recharge time is actually very valuable, as it's a big difference having one of these versus having none in the amount of speed that you can get, and you're traveling faster when you're grappling hooking anyways. So we're going with 2 sprint speed cores and 1 grappling hook. The rest of the things don't really matter. The mods really don't matter because we're not shooting the Secret Garden on Bunny. The one thing that I do want to point out is it's very helpful to use Brisk Walk as well. This is going to give us more. We're not going to go higher than our movement speed cap, which we're already hitting, but it's going to give us our movement speed cap more often so that we're going to be flying around with her. For the inversion reinforcements, we're going to be rocking Adrenaline Rush. This gives us 16% movement speed for 10 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. So this is really nice for hitting our max movement speeds. Kind of the most important out of any of these things, but for the other ones of your optionals, you can go Probabilistic Recovery System for more MP recovery, and then Biodensity Augmentation just stacks up a ton of extra HP, which is really nice. And then getting Quantum Domain when using skills grant Quantum Domain. This is pretty important for getting not only more damage, but also more range, so that we're hitting range cap while we're running around on Bunny. And then also for her Arche Tuning, I don't have her board quite finished yet, so I'll show off her like a Innis board that has the points that I would spec for Bunny, but this is what I was using. Let me move my camera. Basically, main things that we're picking up is more skill cost reduction, more skill power, more range is needed so that we hit range cap, enhanced skill power for more skill power damage, and then more skill cooldown, so just so we can spam our Condense even more often. For the full Arche Tuning board, I'm currently on Innis, but just like to give you an idea of what I would go, basically we can go pick up more MP recovery out of combat, more MP recovery modifier. I think going for more HP is pretty great, and then also just pick up a little bit of extra skill power along the way. Note that we do not need duration. Our cooldowns are overlapping so much that duration's not really needed for anything that we're using, and we're not building crit or crit damage on her, and so none of the other things are really important either. So that is the build that I would rock. For her reactor, you're going to want to look for an electrical fusion reactor that has skill cooldown on it. For the secondary stat, I'd look for either electrical skill power boost ratio or fusion. Fusion will give you more damage for your 4th ability than electrical will, but electric will apply to both your 3 and your 4th. I'm currently using fusion, but if I had my perfect choice, I'd probably be using skill cooldown with electric power boost ratio just to get the most damage for both of her abilities rather than like having extra damage for her 4th, because you still want your 3 to help clear out ads. So skill cooldown and electric boost ratio for the reactor. And then for the components, I strongly recommend rocking the Ascending set 2-piece with the Hunter set 2-piece. This is basically what I'm going to be using on almost all Descendants. It's going to give us minus 4% skill cooldown. Cooldown's multiplicative with each other, so more sources of cooldown are great, and more skill cost, especially with how important retaining electricity is for this build, is fantastic. Note that you could use the Slayer set for more damage. I don't think it's personally needed. I prefer the quality of life and survivability of 2-piece Ascending and 2-piece Hunter rather than the damage of Slayer and the lack of survivability that it gives us. But if you want more damage, you can go that route. We're already one-shotting all of the dungeon bosses, so I don't think it's really necessary to go Slayer, but you definitely could if you wanted to. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Bunny is looking real strong right now for speed clearing, as her basically only weakness, or the only thing that was slowing her down, was her single target on the bosses at the end of a dungeon, and now she just one-shots every elite that she comes across with basically a 3-second cooldown. Pretty crazy. I'll catch you all on the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.